In today's video, I've got something very special for you. I'm going to give you a little bit of my latest online course for free. So I'm going to be putting a few little snippets up of my latest course, which is Confident Colour Mixing for Watercolor Artists. And here I'm going to give you a little bit of lesson 2. And what we're about to talk about is why there's a difference between pigments. So you might have the same pigment number across different brands and it might be completely different. So it's very much a myth that you can look on the back of, a Daniel Smith colour, for example, and see the pigments. Oh, I'll go and buy those separate pigments, mix it together. I've got this expensive Daniel Smith paint. There's actually a lot more to it than that. So let's jump into lesson 2 of my course and find out why the same pigment with the same pigment number may look different across brands or different sources. So the first thing to note is that the same pigment, the same chemical composition doesn't mean that it looks always the same or that it behaves always the same. So I like to use the example of diamonds. So if you think about diamonds, they all made the same way, but some of them are definitely better than others. Some of them are more expensive than others. Some of them have greater clarity than others, and it's the same with pigments. The next reason one pigment may look different from another is just the source of where it comes from. So just as if you were digging dirt in your own backyard, even if that dirt was the same sort of dirt, maybe it was very chalky, as something else you might find on the other side of the world, it's going to look different. So the next reason that pigments can look different is quite simply that they were sourced from different locations or different countries. The next thing we're going to talk about is how a manufacturer actually prepares a pigment. Now, pigments can be heated, and often this is indicated in the name, and they'll be sold as different types of colour. So you might have heard of raw umber and burnt umber. Literally, as the name suggests, a pigment is changed. If you think about cooking in your kitchen, and if you take perhaps some flour and you heat it up in a pan, perhaps you're going to make a sauce, you'll notice it starts to brown, it starts to change colour, and the same thing can happen with various processes that manufacturers go through. But it's not just heat. The size that the pigment is ground to, the grind size, and this has a specific measurement, this can also affect how the pigment looks. Why is that? I'll point the camera downwards and explain how it works. I've got some paint samples of red oxide here. Not only are these all the same pigment, they're all the same batch, and I know because I got them direct from the manufacturers. You'll be astonished at how different these look just by the grind size. We can see the grind size written on here. I believe the M is micron. So we've got 120, 130, 140, 160 and 180. Now, why would the grind size affect how the paint looks? If you remember when we talked about how humans see colour, our brain interprets it as light bouncing off of a surface. And so when we change the size of the pigment, we literally change how the paint looks and how our brain interprets that colour. So let's carry on swatching these. And you see we started kind of brick red, but now we're going a little bit more brownish, a little bit more burgundy. Let's try this one here. And this is why red oxide has so many different names. And the brownest version of it is sometimes sold as something called caput mortuum, which is a very interesting colour because legend has it that it was made from the ground up heads of mummies. It literally means dead head. Of course, that's all nonsense. They're all red oxide pigments, but you can see the difference that the grind size makes to the colour that your eye sees. The camera has actually evened these out a little bit, so if you're looking at them in real life, it's going to be even more noticeable, but hopefully you can see the difference, the grind size and the preparation that the manufacturer does makes to the pigment and how it appears to your eyes. The next thing that can affect how a paint pigment looks is the actual amount of pigment that you're getting. As you can imagine, you're going to get more with an expensive paint than a cheap paint. Let's have a look at that. So sometimes it's not just about the pigment used, it's also about the quality, but particularly about the amount of pigment you get. So it's worth remembering that the most expensive part of any art set, no matter how beautiful the packaging looks, the most expensive part is the pigment. And so very cheap paints like these generic cheap store paints really won't contain much pigment at all. So I'm trying to compare ultramarines here. Now, there's no names on these, but just from looking, I can see that this one looks like it might be an ultramarine. Now that one's definitely a purple, but it could still be, there are ultramarine violets, and that looks very similar to that. Let's try this one over here in the corner. That's the second one I thought might be an ultramarine. So let's try that there. This I would say is either ultramarine or cobalt, and those colours are very close together. Right, now let's try good quality Students brand. So these are the Etcher Lab paints. And we can see that we have just a stronger, more beautiful colour here. Finally, I'm going to try some Jackman's Art Materials. This is the brand I work with. Now, if you're wondering why it's in this little pot when it's an artist's quality, that's because I have a lot of manufacturers' samples. They did actually sell these to the public for a little while. I think they're absolutely so much fun. I really enjoy holding this little pot, but I think they had some issues with them leaking, you know, as they were sent across the ocean on planes and things like that. So here we are with the artist quality, a student quality, and a drugstore quality. And you can see that these probably all have some ultramarine pigments in, but you can see that the difference is in the quality, but it's going to be as well in the pigment load. You see how these cheap paints look almost chalky, and that's because they're full of binders and not full of pigment. The next reason the same colour may look different from different manufacturers is that they all use different binder recipes, and so you may have natural things in there like honey. You may have things like gum arabic, which comes from the acacia tree. That's one of the most common ones. But for all of the manufacturers, they all have their own special recipe, and they all have their idea of how they want the pigment to look, and they'll balance the amount of binders. They won't just have a binder recipe that they'll bung in every colour. They'll balance it depending on how they want that pigment to look. That's the next reason why you will see a difference between brands. The next reason that pigments may look different between brands is a subdivision of the pigment number. So you might be used to seeing something like PB, Pigment Blue 15, but there's actually lots of versions of that pigment, and the wholesaler will sell this batch of pigment, and often it'll have like two dots, it'll have a colon after the one. So you might have PB 15 colon 1, and you might have another, might have 3. I'm making up pigments here, but you know how it works. It's a subdivision of the main pigment number, and that won't always be put on the tube. Whether a manufacturer chooses to give you the exact ratio, the exact subdivision of the pigment, or whether they just label it, 15, that's up to them. There are some pigments that have a huge range. The one that I think of most often is red oxide. Red oxide pigment comes in many versions, and it's actually sold under so many different names, including red oxide, light red, Venetian red, English red, even caput mortem. There are so many versions of that one single colour. One last thing that can determine how a paint colour looks is when we talk about paint colours with multiple pigments in. So in other words, a single pigment versus a mixed pigment. So when you get mixed pigment colours, and anybody can make a colour, I have done it myself. I've designed colours, and I might design a colour and I might call it fresh green. I think I do have a colour called fresh green, and I might mix various yellows and blues or various green pigments in to make that colour. But there are some colours that are pretty standard across ranges. One such colour would be Payne's Grey, which is a very dark bluish grey. Another one would be Davies Grey. Another example would be Sap Green. These are colours that exist across multiple ranges, but here's the thing. Each manufacturer has an idea of how they want that colour to look. So the Sap Green that you get in one manufacturer is going to look probably quite different to the Sap Green that you might get from another manufacturer. One manufacturer might think, I want some gold pigments in this Sap Green. I want it to be very golden. Another manufacturer might think, I want this to be more of a bluish colour, not quite as yellow. And so they'll all make their own mix of sap green. And so when it comes to the actual mixed pigment colours, you're going to get even greater variation than you do amongst single pigment colours. So let's look at these tubes of paint. We have some single pigment and some mixed pigments here. So this one here, I've got some Aurelian, that's a cobalt yellow. And if I look on the back, as well as some yellow paint, I can see it's very tiny here, but it says CI number, that's colour index PY40. So the pigment number is PY40, and that's the only pigment in this tube of paint. Now, here's one that I designed. This one's called Buttercup. It's got that sort of romantic name. and that indicates that it has more than one pigment. So let's have a look on the back, and I've got two pigments in here. I've got PY3 and PY37. They've also listed the names of them, so it's Hansa yellow and cadmium yellow. So I've mixed these two pigments together in certain ratios to make this buttercup colour. So there are a few colours that are common across multiple ranges. One of them is Payne's Grey. So this is Jackman's Payne's Grey, and let's have a look on the back here. And we've got Lamp Black and Phthalo Blue. So that's PBK6, that's the black, and PB15 is the Phthalo Blue. Now I've got another Payne's Grey here. This is an SAA Payne's Grey. So let's have a look on the back. Now I'm not seeing the pigment numbers, but they have given us the pigment names. So again, we've got phthalocyanine, that's your phthalo blue. And then we've got bone black here. So bone black is probably ivory black. So that's going to be PBK9. Whereas this one was PBK6. So we have a slight difference here. Across other ranges, you'll find other iterations of Payne's Grey. There are many colours that you'll find across multiple ranges, things like sap green, Davies grey. Many ranges have these repeating colours. Another one is indigo, but then you'll also find lots of single pigment colours and lots of colours that have been designed by perhaps artists or maybe the scientists who work at the companies, like this buttercup. But the main way to know what's in your paint is to turn it round and have a look on the back. And you can check this out before you buy. This is an old tube that I was gifted, but this contains an animal product, so I wouldn't necessarily buy this one now. And I can find that out before I pay for it by looking on the manufacturer's website. So the upshot of this is that you can't just look at a tube of paint that's perhaps got several pigments in and think, oh, I'll just go off and buy those pigments and I'll make exactly the same thing. These large manufacturers of art materials have a lot more buying power than you have if you're buying stuff of dubious quality on eBay or Etsy, if you're buying pigments and preparing them yourself. Now, I'd never discourage you from doing that. It's great fun, but it's important to understand that it's not as simplistic as you might think. Match one colour with another, you've got the same colour. Absolutely, you haven't. If you have enjoyed this lesson and you'd like to know more about my courses, and this lesson will probably go up on YouTube before the course is finished and ready to launch. I'm planning to launch it, I think, in August of 2026, all being well. You can never know how long these things take. None of my courses have any AI in them. They're all made and filmed by me and edited with the help of the lovely Chloe. So do pop into the video description. You'll find a link to all of my courses there, and I'll see you again very soon.